Right, all the baskets were made up last month and I put them inside the greenhouse for the last month to protect from the frost. I've also been pinching them out every now and then for longer shoots to keep the plants in a good shape and not get too lanky. And now it's the end of May and the threats of the frost have diminished, so it's time to put the baskets in their final position for the summer. If you have large baskets like myself and also want to put them to a decent good height to give the flowers impact, then you've got the challenge of getting them up there over the brackets in the first place. Not easy, one arm holding the ladder and the other positioning the ring of the chain over the wall bracket. And some of the wall brackets can be a bit tricky to flip over with the chain, as I have found in different times. Anyway, I've been putting up my baskets for countless years in the traditional way of putting them up by going up the ladder, and touch wood, I haven't been to casualty yet falling off the ladder. However, now I found an easier way and hope this tip is useful for those who might have the same challenge with those heavier large baskets. Firstly, to reduce the weight, don't water the baskets just before you put them up. If you do, they will weigh a ton. It's much better if you don't water the baskets for perhaps 2 or 3 days and let them dry out just a bit, but not to such an extent that it's going to affect the plants that they won't have any water at all. By letting the baskets dry out, they will weigh half or even less than the weight of a fully watered basket. And the lighter basket will be much easier to handle. Right, I'll go around to the front of the house where these baskets will be placed and show you the easier way of hoisting them up to their final position. But before we do that, I just want to show you the contraption that I've made up for putting the baskets up. First of all, you will need a long piece of cord, double the length of the height of the baskets from the ground, and you will need 2 pulleys. You can get away with 1 pulley, but it's much easier to handle if you have got 2 by looping it over the second one. You'll also need 3 bits of short wire, which if you bend into an S shape, so you put the one on the left hand side on the bracket itself, and the one on the right goes on the bracket as well also, and the one at the bottom is where the basket will be hoisted up. I should also make the point that you can get the pulleys from a good DIY shop or hardware shop. Somewhere like B&Q has them, I believe, and also the cord as well if you haven't already got it. So this will give you a better idea of how it's all set up, with the cord tied to the bracket and the basket at the bottom. And as I said, the second pulley certainly does help with the lifting of the basket. I can assure you this is a much better way than trying to put the baskets up by hand, as I have done in the past, and it's much easier and safer. Right, this is the setup I've got in the front of the house. I've got the ladder on the left hand side of the baskets. The basket is standing on a pot, and I just gather up the chains. And what I will do, I will bunch them up about halfway down, and then I'll thread a piece of string through the links as far down as I possibly can to tie them off. There's a reason for keeping this top part of the chain slack, that you'll be able to get it over the hook much easier at the top. And then just tie it off into a bow so it's easy to undo a little bit later. And then just lift it, just make sure it's secure. then we start the hoisting. What I will do is I'll use one hand to keep hold of the cable on one side, and I'll gently ease up the basket with the pulleys on the other side. Just doing it a step at a time, no need to sort of rush at it. Try to keep the flowers on the sides of the basket parallel if you possibly can. And just keep pushing and pulling with one hand. And then get as far as you possibly can, as far as you can reach, near to the top. And then what I'll do, I'll tie it off onto a bracket which I've already got on the side of the wall, just to secure it before I go up the ladder. You'll notice that the basket is much higher than it actually should be, because I've actually tied the links of the chain a bit further down. So this will make it easy, and it just easily slots straight over the top, and it just goes straight over the hook, dead easy. Then what I'll do is I'll release the cord at the bottom and just lower the basket down so that it's tight on the chain and the hook at the top, and then take off the pulleys around the side of the basket and the cord, and chuck it to one side. Then I'll undo the piece of string and undo the bow, and then it will just rest there quite naturally. And that's the job done. And lastly, what I will do, now that the baskets are in the final position, is if you have planted two plants either side of the basket itself, you want to get them parallel, and quite often when you put them up, they'll swing round to one side or the other with the ring. So I'll just tie a piece of string onto the bracket itself, giving it the right angle. Right, so that's all done, and all you've got to do now is give your baskets a real good thorough watering, which if you have left them for a couple of days to make them a bit lighter, they will soak the water up without any problem at all. I do hope you have enjoyed this video and the tips have been useful if you have the problem like I have every year of getting the heavy hanging baskets up in their final position. Thank you very much, and good luck.